It appears Israel will receive needed funds for its Iron Dome defense system. On Thursday, the House passed a measure that will provide one of our staunchest allies with $1 billion in funding that a group of left-wing lawmakers took out of a government spending bill. According to the Times of Israel, the Iron Dome Supplemental Appropriations Act passed 420 to 9. Two Democrats, Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Hank Johnson, voted present. Meanwhile, 8 Democrats, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Andre Carson, Marie Newman, Jesus Garcia, Raul Grijalva, and one Republican, Representative Tom Massey, voted against H.R. 5323. The bill now goes to the Senate. And after days of debate by vaccine experts, booster shots of the Pfizer vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine that is, can now be officially administered to some adults in the United States. Advisors to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have recommended a third dose of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for people age 65 and older, as well as high-risk individuals. They also recommend the booster shot be given to those ages 18 and older who are exposed to greater risk because of their workplace. The committee's vote was announced after analyzing scientific evidence on the safety and effectiveness of a third vaccine dose. The CDC has yet to offer insight on the use of COVID-19 boosters for fully vaccinated Americans. A Black Lives Matter leader is threatening an uprising over mandatory vaccinations and vaccine passports after 3 women were denied entry to Carmine's restaurant in Times Square, New York, and they attacked the hostess because she asked for proof of vaccination. BLM came calling in protest. Hank Newsom, the co-founder and chairman of BLM New York, joined other BLM members in protesting the restaurant and spoke out about the incident.
I charge Carmine's with trying to cover up their employees' actions by using the vaccination passport as an excuse. Right on. Cancel Carmine! Cancel Carmine! Cancel Carmine! Cancel Carmine!
Newsom said New York vaccine passport mandates are racist. Nearly 85% of black people in New York remain without one dose of that vaccine. Al Sharpton visited the national border in Del Rio, Texas yesterday to call for investigations on the Border Patrol agents on horseback preventing Haitians from crossing the Rio Grande. The Reverend did not receive the reception he may have been expecting.
Why are you trying to come and provoke violence? Why are you here advocating for violence? Why are you here advocating for violence? Del Rio is not a racist city. Del Rio is a loving, caring community. We don't want your racism in Texas. Get out of here. Nobody wants to hear your racist nonsense in Del Rio.
Al Sharpton took President Biden to task, interviewing with the Washington Post, stating Biden said on election night, "Black America, you had my back. I'll have yours." Well, we're being stabbed in the back, Mr. President. We need you to stop the stabbing from Haiti to Harlem. And a report published by BusinessInsider.com references newly discovered emails about Hunter Biden. And these messages have nothing to do with the Hunter Biden laptop that we've all heard about. Now, according to the New York Post, the insider story refers to Hunter Biden's business contacts talking up his father, Joe Biden, then Secretary of State John Kerry's stepson, along with the highest levels in China. The emails also talk about how Hunter is chairman of the UN World Food Program and son of number 2, who has the Libya file. And since he travels with his dad, he is connected everywhere in Europe and Asia. The email from 2015 also mentioned the downside of doing business with Hunter Biden, such as he is an alcoholic, drug addict, kicked out of the U.S. Army for cocaine, chasing low-class hookers, constantly needs money, liquidity problems, and many more headaches. Now, Hunter was actually kicked out of the Naval Reserve, not the Army. As for compensation, the emails say Hunter is asking for a $2 million retainer plus success fees. Tim, back to you.
Okay, Mike, as we have reported, many states have passed heartbeat bills which protect the lives of the unborn. That has prompted congressional Democrats to push for passage of the Women's Health Care Protection Act, authored by California Democrat Judy Chu. Archbishop Salvatore Corleone of San Francisco commented on the bill, saying this proposed legislation is nothing short of child sacrifice. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of San Francisco lashed out at the comment by saying, "I am a Catholic and I am in my right to choose." Bishop Corleone commented on the Texas heartbeat law, saying it should come as no surprise that the law is being challenged by none other than the Satanic Temple on the grounds of religious freedom. The Satanic Temple describes itself as a non-theistic church and is challenging the heartbeat law based on infringement of the religious freedom of their members. Greg, what about that?
All right, Senator Joni Ernst appeared on Fox and Friends today. She said it is not time for Tony Blinken, Lloyd Austin, and General Mark Milley to turn the page on Afghanistan and the disaster there. It's time for accountability.
I understand that they serve at the pleasure of President Joe Biden, but you know what? They serve us as Americans as well. We need answers to why this happened. We lost 13 souls, those brave service members, in the last few days of this haphazard withdrawal. We need to know and understand what has happened. We understand we still have Americans in Afghanistan. We still have special partners, those SIV applicants trapped in Afghanistan and held at the will of the Taliban. We need answers from these leaders.
Lloyd Austin and General Mark Milley are scheduled to testify on Capitol Hill next week regarding the Afghanistan withdrawal. Let's bring in former U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Omar Hamada. Dr. Hamada, welcome to Victory News. Joe Biden, talking of Afghanistan, said the buck stops here on the border. He says, I have taken responsibility. My question is this incompetence with this administration, or is this intentional where Afghanistan's concerned?
That's a great question, and I actually call it intentional incompetence. I actually do think it's both. I think the president, unfortunately, has some challenges, and I think everyone sees that, including his own staff. And that is unintentional, but unfortunately is affecting the entire nation and the entire world. But in terms of this administration as a whole, I think there is intentional incompetence that is being used to destroy the very foundations of our country for some ulterior motives that we can only guess at, but things that are destroying our reputation, things that are destroying our foundation and the very fabric of our society.
Well, and people are dying as a result of it. We can't forget the 13 that, I was going to say gave their lives. They didn't. A homicide bomber took them out. Okay, let's pivot over to COVID-19 real quickly, if we could, sir. Most of the people I know that don't have the vaccine, they're not anti-vaxxers. They've had vaccines before. They don't trust the flip-flops from Fauci and the politicization of this disease. Can you help us understand COVID a little bit better and what the truth really is?
Certainly. You know, and it's confusing because the CDC and the FDA and the NIH and Fauci and everybody keep flip-flopping from day to day and changing their messaging. Today, though, people are starting to stand up. The director of the CDC said that he doesn't believe that boosters are needed. The FDA voted against them 2-16 just a couple of days ago. I like what my friend Dave Asprey says, and that is, I'm not. He basically said, I am pro-vaccine, but I'm not vaccine promiscuous. And this vaccine has so many questions that it's caused people to hesitate. I think there are three groups. There are those people who don't want to take it for whatever reason because they're scared about it. They're not sure exactly what. Maybe they are anti-vaxxers. Or maybe they just think the risks of it are too great. There's that middle ground where people are taking the vaccine either reluctantly or they're full bore on board and believe that it's going to help. We've seen that with the vaccine. We thought it was going to prevent disease. It's not preventing disease, but it is actually lessening the severity of disease. So even though people can still get infected, I think there are some benefits there. Then there's that third group who've had COVID, who've survived COVID. And they're trying to say that we need to get all those people vaccinated. Science actually shows that people who've had a disease have much greater natural immunity than those who've been immunized without having the disease, up to 25 times as much. So if we've had COVID, I don't think there really is a need for vaccination. If you haven't had COVID, you have to weigh your risks and say, if I get COVID, what are my risks? And do I risk having an increased chance of dying or severe disability that goes on for a long time? or do I think I'll get over it pretty easily with these alternative medications that maybe they can get a hold of, maybe they can't. Or they can say, I'm at high risk, I need the vaccine. So.
Right. We're hearing that 26%, according to Fox News, of Navy SEALs have said they won't take the vaccine. In my mind, that puts America and our military at risk when you have this mandatory vaccine requirements on the military. Do they have any recompense or any way to not have to do that?
Not really. And this is being politicized, too, I think, on both sides, unfortunately. In the military, we've always had mandatory vaccines. If you're going to be deployable, you have to have vaccinations up to date, whatever those are, MMR, flu, et cetera. This is just another one. But the problem is this one has so many questions behind it that it's causing people to hesitate. Anthrax was like that 20 years ago. We hesitated and resisted anthrax. So it's going to come down to the leadership of the military to say, is this a hill worth dying on? Are we willing to sacrifice the tip of our spear in order to mandate this, or are we going to back off and let our fighting force do what our fighting force does best?
Yeah. Dr. Omar, thank you so much, sir, for being with us today and your expertise in all this, bringing common sense. And for the record, I will say this. We have always said, if you want the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't want the vaccine, don't let anyone shame you. You make the decision over your body. Dr. Hamada, thank you very much for being with us today on Victory News. Mike, back to you.
Greg, Australia's lockdown enforcement has escalated. Melbourne police are now firing rubber bullets and using pepper spray on men, women, and children. Australian citizens are growing weary of lockdowns and mandates. The latest happening at the Shrine of Remembrance War Memorial over the coronavirus vaccine passports, although there have been protests around the country. The harshest violence has been in Victoria, where hard-left Premier Dan Andrews had implemented quarantine camps, curfews with forced facial recognition and surveillance, even going so far as to place quarantine signs on people's homes, reminiscent of the plague. He has denied services to the unvaccinated and placed restrictions on the quality of products you are allowed to order personally for home delivery. And if you thought the shanty town created under the International Bridge in Del Rio, Texas was bad, you got to listen to this. The New York Post is reporting that people are dying from the heat in the small town of Spin Boldak in Afghanistan. Now, according to reports, some have been waiting for days to cross into Pakistan. In many cases, they are seeking medical care, some of it life-saving. Others are trying to get across to see loved ones. Taliban officials acknowledge the overcrowded area has become a military zone of sorts. The Pakistani military is said to have brought tanks and armored personnel carriers to its side of the border. Tim, back to you.
All right, Mike, thank you. Let's have some fun news, shall we? Anyone who's had kids really just wants them to be happy, healthy, and successful in whatever career they choose. Of course, it's always a bonus if they decide to follow in your footsteps. Well, UK mom Joby Shabu Matthew certainly felt that way when she gave birth to quadruplets 21 years ago. Mrs. Shabu Matthew was working as a nurse in Oman when she became pregnant naturally with non-identical quadruplets. The entire family moved to the United Kingdom in 2009, and by 2018, all four girls had decided to study, you guessed it, nursing. The girls were inspired by watching their mom complete her degree and witnessing how really hard she worked. And seeing her love for the journey, daughter Anisha said, "It's challenging and you work long hours, but that feeling that your skills are making a difference to people is really rewarding." As you can imagine, Miss Shabu Matthews says that she and her husband are very proud of their daughters, as well they should be.